Good afternoon, hello and welcome to a windy, cloudy afternoon here in the Sabi Sands. My name is Scott Dyson. I'm teamed up with Herb, an expert tracker, as well as Dave on camera. And you just got a glimpse of our resident herd of wildebeest that we've been very, very fortunate in seeing two of them give birth. One of them was yesterday morning and another one was the day before that. They have given birth to a total of 4 in the last week or so, and there was interestingly another one that was born yesterday while we weren't around, but I did see that there was an extra addition yesterday evening when we came back from the sunset safari. So hoping that there's going to be a few more youngsters added to this herd, and we will hopefully be able to follow their growth and their life as they try their best to avoid the predators that lurk through this area. Now, this is a live safari. If any of you are joining for the very first time, we would love to know who you are, where you are watching, and how you would contact us is with the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or depending on whichever platform you may be watching, there may be a comment box where you can just pop a question in there. So let's move a little bit closer, try and get you some views of these young wildebeest. They're incredibly cute. They look a lot different to their parents in that they're caramel brown color, not a gunmetal blue like the adults. And who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and see another live birth this afternoon. That would be incredible. The one that we saw yesterday was from foot, which is absolutely ridiculous and testament to how relaxed these wildebeest are with our presence. Today, however, we've noticed it's a little bit different, and that's probably because of the windy conditions. They're not going to be feeling as confident about our presence, not really because of us, but because of this wind. There could be predators sneaking up on them, and their hearing will be muffled by the wind. Also, every little bush that blows, or tuft of grass, can confuse them, and they could think it might be a predator sneaking up on them in the grass. But then a very nice open clearing here, so I don't think they've got anything to worry about, and we have scoured this property this morning for any predators, and there are none nearby here as far as we are aware. Of course, we could be surprised. Wonderful. So it's not just myself out this afternoon. You will also have the joy of joining up with Tristan as well as Noel as they go about their safari. So why don't you go and see what Tristan's plans are for the afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our very gloomy, dingy, overcast safari. In a special warm welcome to the schools that have joined us this afternoon. I hope that it's going to be a wonderful trip through the African wilderness. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Ferg. And Ferg, have you spotted something? Because Ferg is pointing off in the distance. Straight ahead. What have you spotted, Ferg? You've spotted a bird. Oh, lovely, Fergus. There we go. Now, remember, this is an interactive safari, kids, so you can ask your teacher any question that you may have, and we'll try and answer as many as possible, so ask lots. Now, that bird that you just saw was called a Levalence cuckoo, and it's a very naughty bird because that bird parasitizes others. Now, when we say parasitizes, what that means is it basically harms other birds, and how it does that is it will go to their nests, it will kick their eggs out in some cases, so it takes the eggs out of the host bird and it will lay its own eggs there, and then it flies away and it leaves those birds to look after and incubate those eggs until they hatch and then feed those little chicks. Also, what they'll do is they'll lay eggs in the nest with the other eggs, and the eggs look exactly the same as those other birds' eggs, and then those other birds don't know any different, and when the little chick hatches it looks the same as its babies, and so the bond is created between that and the mother, and so then when it starts to change and it looks like a different bird, they don't get rid of it because they've already formed the bond and think that it's their own. So very naughty of those birds to do that, but very clever as well, because it means they don't actually have to worry about raising any chicks or building nests or expending any energy doing any of those things. Right, now I'm going to go along. I'm busy trying to see if I can find you a spotty cat, because we had a leopard this morning, so I'm trying to find her, and while I do that, back to Scott, who's managed to find an animal that I think our leopards would like to hunt, particularly the babies.
Exactly, the leopards would certainly like to hunt these wildebeest, but what I would prefer is Tristan to continue his hunt for the leopards rather than the leopards hunting these young wildebeest, and that way you will get to see the beautiful spotted cats, and I'm feeling confident that Tristan will get lucky. I must apologize to the 3 schools that are joining us, the Brady Brown School, the Bartlett School, as well as Linville, and it's wonderful to have you guys with us on safari. Please send through as many questions as you can. We would love to help answer them, and it's always wonderful to chat with you guys. I wish that when I was at school I could join a live safari, but that wasn't an option back then. So we've just got a question through from Atiana. You would like to know if I've ever been chased before. Yes, I have, by a number of different animals: buffalo, rhino, elephant, and sometimes also the lions and the leopards can chase us. Usually though, the animals will run away from us because they're scared of us as humans and they don't want to fight with us, and you'll normally find that animals will only attack us if we overstay our welcome and if we do not listen to the clear indications that they don't want us to be there. It's kind of like a domestic dog. If it starts growling at you, you stop doing whatever you are and you give it some space. Maybe a domestic cat is the same thing, and us as humans are also similar. If somebody's in a bad mood, you can very often see it in the way that their body language is expressed. So the animals are the same. If an elephant shakes its head at us, we think, okay, it knows we're here, it doesn't want us to be here, so you slowly back out of the situation, and then most times the animals will not give us any trouble. When we tend to find the most issues is when the animals actually have young babies, and just like a lot of our parents would be very protective over us, so are the wild animals, and they feel threatened by us and then sometimes attack us. But with the help of Herb, who you met earlier, the expert tracker, as well as my experience, we tend to avoid dangerous situations, and that's definitely not something that we want to put the animals into a state or a situation where they are feeling threatened by us. We just want to look at them, sneak up on them, have a quick look, and then move out. Hello Melanie, you've asked a very interesting question, and I'm glad you have, because I have actually been pooped on before, mainly by birds. I heard quite a funny sighting the other day. Actually, maybe I'll leave Tristan to tell it for you, because he told me the story and he'll be able to give you a better account of what happened. But basically, one of his guests was giving him a little bit of a hard time, and then an animal ended up pooping on the guest, which made Tristan very happy. But I'll leave him to tell you the full story. I've had a few birds poop on me, but nothing else other than that. The one poop you really do want to be careful of and avoid stepping in. Thankfully it's not going to fall on you because it will be from a lion or a leopard. Those are the smelliest poops in the bush, and if you're to drive over a lion or a leopard poop in your car, the rest of your drive is a nightmare because all of the poop gets stuck between the grip and the tires, and you cannot get that smell off unless you come in and wash it off very, very well, and it leaves you blocking your nose for the whole drive. It's not the only funny smell or situation that we don't want out here, Melanie. Some other situations where we get into smelly or possibly disgusting situations are if animals like lion kill a big prey animal like buffalo or a giraffe. After a few days of lying out in the sun, because the lions can't eat it very quickly, it begins to really, really smell and be covered in maggots. So sometimes what you'll do is you'll break a certain kind of plant. I'll try and find one to show you earlier that smells like mint, and you plug your nostrils with those minty leaves, and that helps with the smell. Very good. I'm sure you guys are all looking forward to hearing Tristan's story about when an animal pooped on his guest. So why don't you go and hear exactly what happened. Oh no, Tristan's just gone into an area with no signal. This is a live safari, of course. In some areas there's no signal, so we're going to send you across to Noelle to see what her plans are for the afternoon.
Hello everyone, and welcome Grady Brown Elementary and Linville Adam Elementary. I hope you all are doing really well today. My name is Noelle, and on camera I have Senzo. There's Senzo's three fingers. So I'm busy driving to go see if I can find some lions. That is my plan for this afternoon. We tried to go to a leopard, but unfortunately we just could not see him in the thick bushes. It just wasn't working. So we'll try him a little bit later and see what happens. We actually have, oh my goodness gracious, we have about 100 impala. Let's have a look at them. So everyone, don't forget forget, we are live and we are interactive, so you can either send a question through your teachers or any other viewers. You can do hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube chat. Beautiful Impala. Edwin, good question. Edwin, you're curious to know what it's like to work with the animals. Edwin, I love my job. I get to play outside all day, and I get to look at, oh, look, we even have wildebeest with babies in the background. Oh, so super cute. So we've got baby impala and baby wildebeest. Edwin, I'm a girl. You see, I love my job. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Sometimes it's a little bit frustrating, Edwin. Like just now, we can see where the leopard is, but we can't get any visual for you on the screen, so we kind of have to leave him and then go look for something else. But I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and now we've got this beautiful view of impala and wildebeest, two of our antelope species. So it's pretty neat. And then sometimes, Edwin, they give us the slip, those cheeky lions. Noah, you're curious to know what type of animal wildebeest are. So Noah, the closest thing, Noah, I'm thinking maybe you guys are from the States, and there you have something called bison. So bison are similar to our buffalo, but I've seen a bison before, and when I look at wildebeest to me look like a little mini bison. So bison are an antelope species, and so are the wildebeest and the impala. So an antelope's kind of similar to a deer or an elk, but with deer and elk you get antlers that fall off every season, and with antelope species you get horns that grow once in a lifetime. So it's bone out of the skull, and then it's covered in material like your fingernail. Eliza, super cool question. Can a wildebeest adopt another animal's baby? Eliza, I've never heard of that happening. And look, just because I haven't seen it happen, and just because I haven't read that it's happened, doesn't mean that some freaky occurrence couldn't happen. But in general, no. They like their own babies, and they stick with their own babies. Lions will sometimes suckle the cubs of other sister lions' cubs. But the wildebeest tend to stick to their own. Same with the impala. Can you hear them at all? I can hear them making noises. I just want to see if maybe you all can hear the same noises I can hear. Kamari, good question. How many babies can a wildebeest have? A wildebeest can have one baby. So wildebeest, impala, other antelope like kudu and nyala, they all have one baby. Giraffes, which are a really huge hooved animal, technically an antelope, but it's stretching it a bit, can sometimes have twins, but it's very rare. And then other animals, a zebra will only have one. A zebra is also a hooved animal. Mostly just one. It's very difficult for animals that are eaten by other animals, so prey species. It's very difficult for them to have more than one baby. Aiden, good question. You want to know why are the impala hanging out with the wildebeest? Aiden, it has to do with the fact that it's the wildebeest hanging out with the impala. The wildebeest are not very smart. Their memories are very much like Dory from Finding Nemo. They forget things very easily, and impala are quite intelligent. So the wildebeest feel safer when they're with herds of impala as it's starting to get dark, and it's going to be dark here in about 2 hours. So then what happens is it's the more ears and the more sense of smell together in a group that helps them make it through the night, because at nighttime the wildebeest and the impala both cannot see. Their eyesight doesn't work at night, just like ours, but things like lion and leopard and cheetah and wild dog can see at night. So everything that eats them can see at night. So the more of them, the more chance that they'll survive. Mason also, yes, you guys have the best questions today. Mason, there could be 3 impala in a herd, or there can be 150 impala in a herd. It just depends. It's very variable. And sometimes the herd is lots of mamas and babies, and sometimes the herd is lots of males. The male herds are called bachelor groups, and then the herds with the females and the young are called breeding herds. Good questions. Keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. I like them. Now, my question for you is, shall we stay with the impala and wildebeest for a little bit longer, or shall I keep looking for lions? Because I'm in the mood for lions. I don't know about you all. I think maybe let's do that. Maybe we find elephants along the way. Alright, well, while I wait for your answers, my friend Scott is looking inside of a hole for some reason. Let's go to him.
torch back.
Hello everyone, I'm fishing for a spider, and it's a massive spider, what you guys in America would call a tarantula. Oh, it's taken the bait. You can see it's pulling the grass there. There's no bait on the end, and I'm just kind of tricking it into thinking that there's an insect. And we call these massive spiders baboon spiders. You guys would call them tarantulas in America. And I hope you're getting some good views. It's tricky business, and I'm told you are getting some fairly decent views of this big, beautiful spider. Cool. Now, I don't want to give it too much of a hard time. I just want to get it to a spot where we can see it. Diego, you would like to know if I've ever been bitten by one of these baboon spiders. No, I haven't. And I've been bitten by other smaller spiders, but thankfully the spiders don't give us too much of a hard time out here, and it's only if you actually roll over in your bed and kind of hurt one that I think they will bite you. So, like a lot of the wild animals out here, if you give them their space, they won't give you any trouble. It's the same with snakes. We sometimes get lucky and see snakes, not as often as we would like, because they usually slither off before we can actually find them. But just like the lions and the leopards and the elephants, if you respect them, usually they will respect you. And what you find is that usually people get bitten by snakes or spiders when they're actually handling them or trying to catch them, or even worse, sometimes trying to kill them. Now I know it's quite easy for us to, as humans, to possibly be scared of snakes or spiders or not like them, but it's important to remember that all the animals on the planet are here for a reason. So even though we may not like them, like some people may not like vegetables, that doesn't mean that they aren't important. And we must always remember that every little animal out here, even little flies and mosquitoes, play their part in the great ecosystem. It's not just the big animals that we need to keep these beautiful places as they are. Each little animal has their job to do. Now what we're planning on doing is spending a lot of time looking for little bugs in and around the bushes. These little bushes are a very specific kind of bush that praying mantids like to live on. We get some tiny little praying mantids, so I'm going to hopefully try and find you one of those. Very, very pretty little insects, as well as very, very good hunters. So it's not just the lion and leopard that can hunt, but a lot of the insects are very, very good at catching their prey. Very good. It sounds like Noel has got into a good spot with some playful wildebeest.
So, thanks, Scott. I do have very playful little wildebeest. It sounds as if everyone wants me to go towards the lions, and I'm definitely going to do that. You all can drive with me and watch what I do, but I'm sorry, these two wildebeest calves are super cute. Look at them. They're practicing for when they're older, and they don't even have horns yet. So these wildebeest babies, you can see the umbilical cord, everybody. These little wildebeest babies are only a couple of days old. And they were running around earlier just now, and look, that mom's pushing the other one away. She's like, stop picking on my child. They were chasing the impala around just now as well. It was very, very cute. Now mom's going to walk away, and that older one's going to come up and bump that one. Ooh, Katie, cool question. You want to know how many animal births have I seen and what kinds of animals? Katie, I've seen wildebeest giving birth. I've seen giraffe giving birth. I've seen wildebeest giving birth. But I think that's about it. I haven't seen lion or leopard give birth because they tend to give birth in secret. And elephants as well like to give birth in secret. I have a couple friends who have seen it, but I haven't seen it yet. So that would be super neat. I would love to see that. Alright, so those wildebeest calves were very cute. Oh, something I would just like to tell you guys. So sometimes we talk about calves and sometimes we talk about lambs. So these wildebeest babies are calves and then the impala babies are lambs. And that has to do with the size of the adults. So with the size of the impalas, they're little, so that the mum is a ewe and the male is a ram and the baby would be a lamb. And then with the wildebeest are much bigger. So the mum is a cow and the male is a bull, and then the baby would be a calf, just for interest's sake. Brannigan, you're asking how big do the wildebeest get? So a wildebeest will weigh about 250 kilograms, so just over 500 pounds. And then I'm trying to think of the shoulder. Oh my goodness, these ones are just being so silly today. I'm trying to think of the shoulder height, and it's going to be maybe a couple of meters, so maybe about 5 foot. I'm 5'7", so yeah, up to my shoulder. Let's say about roughly 5 foot. Sorry, I'm trying to convert from, in South Africa, we do the metric system, and then where you guys are in the States, you do the imperial system. So I grew up learning the imperial system, and I didn't study math. You all must study math, because it was very difficult for me. And now I've transferred over to the metric system, which I find easier because it's in tens. So in my head, I have to convert a little bit. It's not always precise, but it's getting there. Okay, enough of the cuteness. It's uber cute. But let's carry on and look for some lions. So, kiddos, tell me, what do you know about lions? Kimberly, good question. You're curious to know, when do wildebeest babies get their horns? You'll start seeing their horns properly after a few months, and then by the time they're a year old, oh, come on, Wendy, drive. They've got 2 little double horns like this, and then at 2 years they come out like this, and then so on until they curl around like that. Did you all also notice with those wildebeest that both the female and the male had horns, and with the impala, the females didn't have any horns, only the males have horns. That's also a difference between those two particular antelope species. And then the bison that you all get in the States, I believe, although I could be wrong on this, maybe one of you knows, I believe that both male and female with bison have horns as well. So Scott's in fine form today. First he was looking into a hole, and now apparently he's sitting on a tree stump. Maybe he's pretending to be a leopard. I don't know. Let's go have a look.
I'm not pretending to be a leopard just yet, but maybe a little bit later on I shall do that. This tree is not the ideal tree for a leopard to do its business on, but the tree behind me is a beautiful big marula tree, and you'll notice that once the main big branches start forking out to the side, they become very horizontal, and they're also quite thick branches, so lots of comfortable spots for a leopard to lie up, and the leopards are by far the best climbers of the big cats, so they can quite easily climb up trees, and sometimes they'll even be able to grab their kill, whatever it is, an impala, something often their same size as them, grab it by the neck, and then climb up a tree, put it over a branch, and that way no hyenas or other animals will be able to steal it from them very easily. Hello Mia, you're wondering if I ever get scared out here, and yes, it's always important to be cautious when out here, because even though the animals don't want to hurt us, if we do things wrong, and if we are unlucky and scare an animal like a buffalo or an elephant, they could defend themselves and attack us. But 9 times out of 10 they won't, so as long as you just remember that there are risks and you take all the precautions, then nothing should happen. It's kind of like crossing a street, Mia. If you don't look left and don't look right before you cross the street, all of a sudden crossing a road becomes very, very dangerous. But if you take the basic precautions, look left, look right, and then cross, then it all of a sudden becomes safe. So a lot of these situations out here in the bush, you can equate to what the situations you guys deal with back home are like. Now, the tree behind me is not only a good tree for elephants to sleep in, for leopards to sleep in, but it's also one of the elephants' favorite food. They'll feed on the leaves of the tree, the bark of the tree, but their favorite food from this tree are the fruits. And this is the leftover nut from one of last year's fruits, I'm guessing. You can see that there's a little hole over there, and within that hole there's a very, very tasty nut, kind of like a macadamia nut, a very rich, tasty nut that lives in that hole. And usually both of these holes will be opened up, mainly by tree squirrels, to get to that nut. But this one hasn't been opened up yet, so I'm going to open it up for you and see what's inside. So there's a perfect little cap here. And as you see, it's easy to open now because it's an old nut. There we go. Oops. So once that pops out, the nut would ordinarily be waiting for you inside there, and they are very, very tasty and highly nutritious. But this one's probably been eaten by small bugs and insects because it has been lying on the ground for a long time. Now, before this fruit became old and probably eaten by elephants initially, it would have had probably been the size of a golf ball and had a big layer of flesh around it. And I can actually see some of the fruits in the tree up above us. It's going to be tricky for Dave to find one, but if he looks around enough he will. They're probably halfway to being ripe at the moment, so in about another month or so all of these fruits will start dropping from the trees, and what that means is that the elephants will be in a very, very good mood. And sometimes you get to actually see the herds running from tree to tree, trying to beat all of their herd members to get to all the fruits lying at the bottom, and then they gobble them up as quickly as they can. So that's something that I'm looking forward to in the next month or so once these fruits are ripe. We can also make some tasty marmalades and jam. Oh, I dropped my flashlight. Some tasty marmalades and jam out of the fruits, and for those who like beer, you can make a local beer out of the fruits, and that's what the local people from this area do. Danielle, yes, people can definitely eat these nuts. It's not just for the squirrels and other animals, but we can eat them. The problem is I think because they're quite small and because these nuts are very hard to break into, they haven't been sold in shops and been commercialized just yet. But in certain shops in this general area, this is the home of the marula tree, the area that we are in and the area that they grow best, sometimes you can actually buy these little nuts and they are absolutely delicious. But like I said earlier, when I popped that cap off now, it was very easy. Usually when the nuts is more fresh, it's very, very difficult to pop that cap out and get to the nuts. Hello, Mrs. Harper. You would like to know if leopards hunt from up in trees because they're not as fast as the other cats. And no, that's not the case. They're not as fast as cheetah. And with their stealth they can get very, very close to their prey. To give you an idea, if this was an impala and I was a leopard, I would have to be no further than this before I pounced. Anything further than this is too far because their prey are very quick. Animals like lion, because there's a number of them, they can encircle their prey and don't have to be as close. And animals like cheetah, because they are the fastest mammals on the planet, they can catch up to their prey. Having said that, what's interesting is sometimes leopards will actually hunt from trees, but it's more through default than anything else, Miss Harper. They'll be sleeping up in a tree, and then maybe some inyala will come in to feed on the marula fruits that have fallen from it, and the leopard will be lying up there with some food right below it, and it just jumps straight down from the tree onto their prey. And there have been some incredible, incredible scenes captured. I've never seen it happen, of leopards doing just that. I saw one scene, I can't remember what country it was filmed in, I think it could have been Botswana, but the leopard must have been about 8 or 9 meters up in a high, high tree, and it literally jumped head first straight out of this tree. Now, to give you an idea, that's 4 regular sized doors up that this leopard came flying out of the tree straight down onto an impala. So they do it from time to time, but like I said, it's more through default than anything else. They'd have to wait very, very long in a tree for their prey to come to them if they were to have any luck. Now, we've moved out of that big open clearing. We're moving into a bit of a thicker area, and like I said earlier, we don't want to scare any animals or surprise them by our presence. So I've got this bag, well, it's a sock actually, that's filled with ash from the campfire, and as I do this you can see that the ash comes out and gives us an idea of where the wind's blowing. At the moment it's kind of swirling all around us, which means we have to be very, very cautious so that animals can't smell us before we actually see them. So I'll keep testing the wind as we go. It seems to be predominantly coming into us, which means any animals ahead of us shouldn't know that we're coming. Hello, William, you'd like to know what is the most dangerous animal we get here? And it's a tricky one to answer. For me, I would say in general the herbivores are more actually dangerous than the predators. Animals like elephants, hippopotamus and the Cape buffalo are the 3 I think most dangerous animals to encounter on foot, and any given one of them could be more dangerous than the other depending on the day. I guess it's kind of like William saying, you know, which which of your friends is the most dangerous? All of them are different, even though we are all humans. Some people may be less angry than others, or some people may not be as dangerous. So just like we have our own personalities, so do wild animals. But interestingly, it's mainly the herbivores that are dangerous to us on foot, not so much the big cats, which is what everyone kind of tends to think. But they don't want to hunt us, they don't want to eat us. Sounds like Noelle is trying her best to find you some predators, so why don't you guys jump on her vehicle and give her a hand. Hopefully maybe one of you will spot it before she does.
Ooh, yeah. For us, but I also have Senzo with me, and Senzo has some crack in eyesight, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to place. Very blustery. It wants to rain just now. My hat keeps flying off, so I'm gonna have to drive like this. I need to check the road every now and then, so excuse the back head. Human, they don't us. They don't know us. They don't know that we're. They. If they've never eaten a human, they don't know that everything they eat has 4 legs. We also like their vision. Oh, sorry, I gotta go back to Scott. I've got some. Sorry.
Hello. Shame it sounds like the signal on Noelle and Tristan's vehicle is a little bit shaky today, but thankfully we've got some technical geniuses that will hopefully fix the problem sooner rather than later. And you've come back to us at a good time, because we've come upon an old graveyard, and it looks like the scene of where a male impala has died. His horns have broken apart, and what I'm hoping to show you is exactly how horns are different to antlers. Now, the horns would have been kind of something like that on the head of the impala. How do I look?
Right.
Could I be an impala maybe? So what's interesting here, and for a lot of you guys in America, you guys will have deer, and deer don't have horns, they have antlers, and there's quite a big difference between a horn and an antler. Antlers fall off every year and regrow very, very quickly when it comes for the rutting season, and it's got a velvety kind of covering around it, so a softer kind of covering. Here in Africa, all of our antelope have got horns. We don't have any animals with antlers. And here you can see that the inner of the horn is bone, and this grows throughout the life of the impala or the antelope, and it's got a very thin sheath of keratin. So this is the same material that makes up our fingernails or our hair, and it's just a very, very thin sheath that creates that brown coloration on the outside of this bony inner. So interesting difference there. Now, there's a few animals that are making sure that nothing goes to waste out here, and namely, there are some horn borer moth, and it's a very, very specifically modified moth that's created these little tubes or cases as they fed on this keratin sheath. Keratin, our fingernails and hair, is very, very difficult to digest, but these very specialized moths can do just that. Not only that, there's a few termites. I can see one here, tiny little termite that's using this as its home. They're not actually feeding so much on any parts of the horn or bone, but I think they've just decided that it was a good place for them to live. So termites are also very important, also very specialized in what they can do and what they can feed on, and they are the #1 recyclers of all vegetable matter. All the old dead plants and branches and dead grass that none of the other animals want to eat are what the termites gobble up, and by them gobbling it up, they recycle all of those nutrients that would otherwise lie in waste and possibly become a big hazard for fires if there's just dead, dry bushes everywhere. So they do a very, very good job of recycling everything. So now I just want to put everything back just the way I found it, so that we don't interrupt Mother Nature's plans too much. Oh, here's another little piece of the keratin sheath that you can see the bony inner would have come around. Cool. Nyla, you would like to know if there's anything that we could use these impala horns for, and I guess maybe some decorations in one's home. But usually we don't like to pick up anything and move anything out of the bush, because like I said, there are animals that need those things to survive. The horn borer moth that eats that keratin sheath wouldn't have any food if we kept taking all the horns out of the bush. So generally, when you are in a wildlife reserve or wildlife area, it's best to just come in, look, observe, and not necessarily take anything with you other than memories. So that's the rule we try to stick by when going about our adventures. Imagine if somebody had taken those horns, we wouldn't have actually been able to see them. Hello Dion, you'd like to know if it's hard to find animals here. And yes, sometimes it is. It all depends on what you're looking for. And if you are happy to look at all of the different animals, then you'll definitely always be able to find something. Some birds or some antelope. Usually the animals like leopard and lion can be a little bit more tricky to find. And animals like insects, there's so many of them, and I found one over here. Maybe if you come around this other side here, Dave, there's an awesome little grasshopper that I just saw move ever so slightly, and you guys are going to get some great views of it.
Is it the base?
Oh, no, it's just on the side here.
I've got it.
It's so well camouflaged that Dave battled to even see it. And this is a good example. If you just move slowly, even in your own backyard, there's so many interesting little critters and creatures that are going about their lives, just like this little grasshopper. Hello. I like your little orange antenna. It seems a bit short. There's one broken off. Hard to tell. Look at that big eye of his, keeping an eye on us. And what a cool view of one of the tiny, tiny critters. It's probably only the size of my fingernail. Nadia, you would like to know what happens once the sun goes down. Are there animals that like to move around after dark? And yes, there certainly are. There's some animals that are almost strictly nocturnal and will only move around under the cover of darkness. And then others like the lion and the leopard who like to hunt after dark, because that's when they have the best advantage over their prey. Their eyesight is very good in the dark. Most of the predators can't see very well in color, but that means they can see well in black and white after dark, whereas the prey animals have got a better ability to see in color, but then can't see as well after dark. So you get a whole bunch of animals like porcupine, Africa's largest rodents. They like to come out after dark. The aardvark, a pig-like animal that likes to dig up the termite mounds and ants' nests and use a long thin tongue to gobble them up. So there's a few examples of the more nocturnal animals. Some will do a bit of both, but it's definitely fair to say that once the sun sets, a whole host of different animals come out and start doing their thing. Jason, you'd like to know how we go about following animals and following the predators after dark. And with the way technology is developing, we're getting very, very lucky, because there's some incredible technology, thermal imaging, so it just picks up any animals that are hot. So you'll just see the outline of their body because of their temperature. So you use thermal cameras sometimes, as well as infrared cameras. Now, an infrared light is a light that our eyes cannot pick up, but the special infrared cameras can. So essentially we can go about viewing a lot of the nocturnal animals without actually having to shine any spotlights. People still do use spotlights, and it's still important to use spotlights to be able to show people animals like lions and leopards and all the other nocturnal interesting animals after dark. But it means that we are interfering a little bit, because if we shine the spotlights on a leopard, obviously the impala will be able to see it. If we shine the spotlights on the impala, then it means they'll be blinded and the leopard will be able to creep up to them easily, and we don't want that. We don't want to disadvantage any animals and have too much of an impact on things. One thing quickly before we send you off: found some poop here, and don't be fooled, it may look clean and white, but it's not. It's the poop of a hyena. And let me get the stick here, sorry. And hyenas are the bone crunchers of the African wilderness. They've got very, very powerful jaws, and not only that, they've got very, very powerful digestive juices. So all the bones that they eat get completely dissolved up. Look at that. As I break it up, you don't see any little bits of bone, and this is a telltale sign of some hyena poop. Hopefully we'll be able to find you some hyena today, but if not, hopefully some other predators will be about. In the meantime, we'll send you back to Noel to see how the afternoon's coming along. Maybe not. Sounds like her signal's just dropped again. So you're stuck with me for a little bit longer. I can show you an interesting little thorn bush here. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have got big thorns in your hometown, but look at this for a thorny tree. Let me see if I can break off this thorn here. Look at how long they are. It's as long as my finger. Thankfully, this acacia tree, the thorns aren't very strong and they're quite brittle. As you can see, I could break it quite easily there. So of course, yes, if you stood on it with a pair of flip-flops, it would go straight through and it would give you a bit of a nasty spike. But it's probably not going to give our vehicles punctures when we are off-roading, following the big cats as they go about their business. But what's interesting is there are a few other bushes with maybe not as long a thorn and more of a spine that give us flat tires, and one actually managed to puncture through these big boots of mine the other day, and they gave me a puncture, and this rubber is really hard, so it gives you an idea of how hard some of the bushes can be here with their thorns. Those make really good toothpicks. Often on safari you stop in the evening for a sundowner snack with your guests, and if you forget any toothpicks to have any of the little cocktail snacks, you can always just get a few of those thorns. So I've used that trick a few times when we forgot bits of our picnic. Martha, you'd like to know if I ever get bored of my job? And not really, no. We're very, very lucky with what we do. It's always wonderful to have so many people with us on safari. There's no other place in the world where so many people join any one guide on safari at any given point. So I think it's wonderful that we are taking you guys on the biggest safari the world has ever seen. And it keeps us excited, entertained, all the questions you guys send through, and the fact that just around this next corner we could bump into some elephants, some leopard, some lion, who knows? And that always keeps me exciting. We simply never know what is going to happen and when. Speaking of which, hopefully this time you will be able to go to Noel without any signal issues. So why don't you go and try and see if you can give her a hand with whatever she's up to.
Sorry about all the technical difficulties, everybody. Unfortunately, it looks as if our lions have moved into an area that I cannot get into. I could hear a bunch of francolins, which are like little partridges, little birds, alarm calling inside of a drainage line. But my gremlins are too thick today, maybe a little bit later. I have a feeling it's this creepy weather that's pulled through. It's super cold and windy. So I'm heading towards Chitwa Dam, and hopefully I will find a little leopard. Sorry, Curse, Danielle was asking about... Danielle, good question. You're asking, how do we tell animal tracks apart from one another? It's very similar to us. If you look at your hand, everyone's hand size is different, as well as you've got different sort of wrinkles. Your little fingerprints are different, so that's one of the ways you tell the part. So an impala has hooves. It has a split hoof, and it's a certain size, and a wildebeest is a much more boxy shape, and it's larger. And then lion has 4 toes and three lobes at the back. I'll try and see if I can find you some tracks that you know what I'm talking about while we're doing this. And a leopard's very similar but much smaller. A cheetah is also similar, but it's a little bit longer and it shows the claws. Hyena only has 2 lobes and shows the claws. So there's all these little differences, just like our individual hands ourselves. It's a good question. We had some rain, and then it got very, very hot. So a lot of the tracks that I was hoping to show you have not showed up on the ground. But if I find you some, I'll definitely show them to you. Now we're coming up to the dam, and there's some impala, which we talked about earlier. Jason, good question you're asking. Does it rain a lot? So Jason, in our summertime, it's summer for us now, we get rain. We get about 600 mils of rain, which I think is... Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We're going to ask, you can Google it, or maybe your teacher will know. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to do mils to inches, millimeters. So we get quite a bit, of rain in the summer. Not a huge amount, but enough, because it's South Africa, especially where we are, is more arid. It's a little bit drier. And there's other parts of South Africa that get much more rain. There's other parts of Africa that get much more rain as well. And then it rains every sort of couple of days here in general, if everything's going according to plan. All right, so here we are at the dam, just coming around the corner. And I'm having a look for any predators that might be lying nearby, and for maybe some hippos that might be here. I'm just going to come to where we normally see some hippos and see if I can show you one of those quickly. Here we go. You can see some hippos right through there. So hippos are a big mammal that live in the water, very similar to a manatee or to a dugong. And they're also related to whales. Whales and hippos are in the order Whippomorphia, they're cousins. There we go. Especially adapted, they can hold their breath for about 10 minutes. Alright kiddos, thanks for joining. Wonderful questions today. You definitely have to come and join us again. That would be great. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry no cats, but next time. Maybe next time. Thanks so much. Alright, hello everyone else. Welcome back. Well, I'm saying welcome back, but you haven't really gone anywhere. We're still here. It's very cold and very windy, and the gremlins are really hitting me hard today. We have Tingana, who's lying inside of a drainage line, still with his injured paw. I saw him this morning for quite a while, and he's moved a little bit, but it's a bit swollen, and I think he's just resting. And then the two of the Burmese were seen this morning as well, but when I went into that area, they've gone into this thick drainage line as well that I just can't get into. And also the gremlins keep attacking me every time I try, so unfortunately, but it's cold and windy weather, and as we know with cold and windy weather, the cats start to move a little bit earlier, as opposed to sort of yesterday afternoon that was really hot. Pretty sure that was yesterday afternoon. All the days are blending together at the moment. Sorry. Okay, so sometimes when I'm talking to you guys, Kirsty's in my ear, and every now and then when I pause, take a breath, and think about what I want to say, Kirsty's in my ear again with something else, just telling me what's going on and giving you questions, and so relating information back, and then also telling me what is Scott seeing and what is Tristan seeing. So apparently my friend Tristan, who left the same time as I am, is no longer mobile. He's being towed back to camp. Something's happened with Rusty, and so I'm sorry, Tristan. I'm a horrible person. If someone falls over, I laugh. I don't mean to. It's just a really bad reaction. So hopefully Tristan will sort out what he needs to sort out, and then come back to us. Shame, man. That's very unfortunate. Okay, so everybody, what are we going to do today? What would we like to try and see? What would we like to try and find? I'm sitting here at Chitwa Dam with my rain covers on because it looks like it's going to rain, so you will see a pole every now and then. And I'm seeing lots of impala, I'm seeing a wildebeest, I'm seeing a couple of waterbuck in the distance there. The hippos are not really playing along because it's too windy. We're just getting little noses above the water, but there's probably 200 impala here in general. Lots of little babies, tons of little babies. Those wildebeest babies earlier were super cute. I think what we might do is we might have a look around the backside of Chitwa Dam and see if Hassan has popped up. This morning, Tristan had quite a nice sighting with Tundi, but she's moved away, and I think that's what he was doing before he broke down, unfortunately. And so I'll ask and see if there's any updates with that. Now, while I'm busy debating about what we're going to do and where we're going to go, let's head back to Scott, who I didn't quite get what he's up to, but he's on his own 2 feet in the bush, so I'm sure it's something fun.
Yes, sometimes it is difficult to decide what to do, but I'm sure Noel is going to come up with a good plan. Now, I've found the sickle bush, the tree responsible for giving me a puncture a few days ago, and I'd just like to show you what I mean about these spines. They're not as clearly evident as the big white thorns of that acacia tree we were looking at earlier, but these are the ones that are really, really strong. I mean, this one's a bit long, so it's not too strong, but this one underneath here, it's short, it's sharp, and it's very, very hard wood. It's very hard to bend and break, and these bushes also give our cars the most punctures out of all. So a good example of if you know which bushes are around the area that you are driving off-road, you will limit your chances of getting a puncture. And there's nothing worse than getting a puncture. Often it can be at the worst timing as you're about to arrive at some lions roaring. All the air goes out, and then you have to stop, change the tire, and miss out on the action. Robert, you have noticed that I'm wearing some form of protection around my legs here, and this is to protect my socks. These are called gaiters, and if you didn't wear these, there's lots of little burrs and sticky seeds that will get stuck to your socks and that will irritate you. So that is why I'm wearing these little gaiters, to keep my socks free of burrs and sticky seeds. And you're wondering why I'm not worried about snakes or spiders biting, or possibly even those parasites called ticks. And snakes and spiders are unlikely to bite us unless, of course, you step on them or aggravate them. The ticks, however, are a bit different. They can pop on as we're walking through the long grass. They often sit and stand on the edge of blades of grass and then latch onto you as you move past, just like they latch onto all the different herbivores. And I'm sure we'll actually be able to find you some ticks in this area. There's some very big ticks called rhino ticks that specialize on latching onto the rhinos, and I'm confident we'll be able to find you some of those. But as long as you kind of watch where you're going, you probably aren't going to come into any trouble. So that's why I'm wearing shorts. It also is quite a warm area that we're working in here. Ordinarily, if the sun was shining, I would be sweating right now. It gets very, very hot and humid in this part of South Africa. And even though it's cloudy today, it's definitely not cold. So if I was to be wearing longs, it would be unpleasantly hot. Now, let's come and look here for some ticks. They like long blades of grass. Not like the one I showed you a bit earlier. That was a bit too short. It's not a tick, but we found a spider. Look at that. How cool. And it looks like she's on her nest of little eggs that she would have wrapped up in that little white fluffy material. And looks like she's taking a good job in making sure that those eggs are protected and that nothing comes and gobbles them up. Well done, Mummy Spider. She's got beautiful colorations and markings. As I bend this little blade of grass down, you'll see. Good. Debbie in Vancouver, you'd like to know a little bit more about the unknown leopard that we saw this morning, and to be honest, we don't really know too much about him, and I'm hoping Tristan, who's got the most experience of leopards in this area, will be able to work out who he was. He was quite relaxed. We found him on foot, and initially we thought he was Hosanna, a young male that the guys have spent a lot of time with here in the last 2 years that he's been alive, and he's very, very relaxed with us on foot. So when we first found him, he just moved off the termite mound and lay about 20 meters from us. So we incorrectly just assumed that it was our friend Hosanna, but it wasn't, and we are not too sure who he is, where he's come from, but hopefully we will be able to work out exactly where he is. I'm confident we will. A lot of you guys may also be able to help us in his identification. We just need to show you guys some pictures of him. He was a young male, not too sure how old exactly. We didn't get the best views. Tristan would have got better views in the vehicle when he came in and established the sighting after us. So, I'm going to continue to search for the rhino ticks. I know they like this pathway. I've seen quite a few of them on it before, and while I search for those little bloodsuckers, we'll be sending you back to Noelle. Hopefully she would have made up her mind as to what she wants to do for the rest of the afternoon.
Scott, I have not indeed made up my mind, and I usually just go with the flow, but I'm having a major blockage with the flow today, but that's okay. We've got wonderful antelope species and a really beautiful example of a male waterbuck. I always find a male waterbuck to be quite handsome. This one in particular has a very large, widespread horns, and he's just very handsome. Now, Tesla, sweetie, I believe you are watching today, and I hope you're feeling a bit better, and I was wondering if you would mind sending through your 12 Days of Christmas remake that you did with your mum. So if you want to send that through, and then I would wonder if there's maybe waterbuck in it, maybe impala, although I have a feeling, Tesla, that you've probably put in lions and leopards and elephants. That would be my guess. Again, guys, sorry for the poll. It is looking terrain, so we're just trying to keep our equipment safe by having our little roof on, so they will pop into the screen every now and then. Now, all of these antelope species are making their way towards the water, the impala in particular, and for a while they were running and jumping on their way. Oh, really, sir? That's rather rude. Yeah, we'll go to the baby impala. It's much cuter than what the waterbuck was doing. They were running and jumping on their way down. That has a lot to do with this windy weather that's picked up. Remember, when it's windy like this, it takes away their ability to smell and hear properly, and they really don't trust their eyesight. And also, it's going to be dark relatively soon, so they're starting to get a little bit nervous. We've got a female waterbuck. Ooh, Jilly, super interesting question. Have there been any negative impacts? Oh, check that. Male's checking to see if that female's in estrus, if she's in heat. Watch, she's going to lick her urine, and then he's doing a phlegm grimace. You see that? He's testing her pheromones to see if she's ready to mate. Very cool. He's going to do it again. Absolutely fantastic. Really incredible social behavior to witness. So all of those pheromones that are in there are getting processed inside his organs of Jacobson. We humans don't have that organ, but we do process, look at that phlegm grimace, so wonderful. We do process pheromones in our own way. So when you find someone else attractive, it has a lot to do with their smell, which has a lot to do with pheromones. Oh, look, now he's nudging her. He wants to get a little lovin', putting his head on her rump. And sort of, he'll touch her with his leg every now and then. And if she doesn't really move away, oh look, and now he's giving her a little cuddle, a little nudge, saying I love you. And if she doesn't move away quickly, he will try and mount her. There, see her nudge? There he nudges. Now he's lining himself up. He's checking to make sure there's no other males around. She's moving, but she's not moving away quickly. And she did urinate for him quite readily and frequently, so I think it's possible that she is in the mood. Again, resting his head on her rump. So we've seen lots of births this week with all the wildebeest births. So maybe it's fitting to see the beginning part of it as well with the antelope species. She's keeping her tail erect, so to me she's looking very receptive. Now he touches her again with his leg. It's a slow dance, this, a very slow dance. And he obviously doesn't want to force himself upon her. He wants to make sure that whatever energy he's putting into this, she's receptive as well, or else it's just a waste of energy and time. Okay, so while we're waiting to see if this male waterbuck manages to get to where he wants to go, Julie, you were wondering, have there been, since Kruger National Park opened up on the northern end to Zimbabwe, have there been any negative impacts over the years? So just to give everyone, I don't have any maps with me, I'm so sorry, but just to give everyone a sort of idea of how we're situated. So we are inside the Sabi Sands, which is concessions that are tied together on the southwestern side of Kruger National Park. We're not inside of Kruger National Park. We are open to Kruger National Park. We're in the greater Kruger area. And then Kruger goes the whole eastern boundary of South Africa with Mozambique, and then is open to Zim and Mozambique on the top there. So basically what Julie's asking is, there was a transfrontier park that was opened up to allow free movement of animals back and forth, and how is that affected? So something that's interesting, when they dropped those fences there, I think maybe did he stop? Oh, there's warthogs. Maybe let's watch the warthogs while I'm busy telling everybody about this, so you can watch the beautiful wildlife instead of looking at my face. And they're moving as well, which is quite nice. So when those fences were dropped, what ended up happening was there was the thought that animals would just automatically move over, and it didn't really happen that way. So they translocated a whole bunch of elephants, and then those elephants were like, well, we don't want to be here, and they just moved back to where they were. So slowly over the years, there has been some nice movement, and that's worked out well. I'm thinking sort of from negative impacts, it's really hard with the transfrontier parks, because South Africa has its own regulations when it comes to wildlife, and Zimbabwe has their own regulations, and Mozambique has their own regulations. So our conservation is different from their conservation, and so that can sometimes cause problems. Also, Zimbabwe has gone through a lot of political strife, as has Mozambique. So there's been a lot of influx of people from both countries, a lot through the park. So that's been quite difficult as well. But yeah, I think it's been about a 50-50 split, Julie. We could talk about this the whole game drive, and it is a really great question, and is a really in-depth scenario to discuss, but I think just sort of overall in a roundabout ball, it's been good, and it is good, but it's also, there's still not enough space, there's still too much fragmentation, there's still too many humans around, and the wildlife needs more space to be in, and with the political things that are happening in Zimbabwe and Mozambique, and also you could say a little bit in South Africa, has led a lot to influences from outside countries, specifically overseas countries, coming in, and that's been an uprise in poaching. So that's an issue as well. And then in the northern part of Kruger, there's not a lot of rhinos up there, so the poachers that are coming in that aren't getting rhinos, they're trying to take out elephants on the way out, and that's been a trend in the past couple of years. So that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with dropping fences or opening fences, because they'll still get over the fences, the poachers. Yeah, so 50-50, Julie. Let's go 50-50. All right. Tula Ann, I haven't heard you in forever. I'm so happy to get a question from you. And your question is, do baby impalas ever fall over when they run and jump like that? Tula Ann, I've never seen them fall over when they run around and jump like that. I have seen one sort of get in a hole and then not break its leg, and that's been an issue. But in general, no, they do fine. They're okay. They're sprightly. They're meant to jump around. All right, I think we've used up Chitwa Dam as best as we possibly can, and we've had really great questions, everybody. Keep them coming. I think we're going to go search around Chitwa a little bit more, and while we're doing that, let's head back to Scott, who has a spider.
We certainly do, and I've been searching day in and day out for a clever spider like this little crab spider, who very cleverly positions itself right below some flowers, which are obviously going to attract insects, and as soon as any insect lands on that flower, that spider is ready and poised to pounce. What an awesome, awesome view of an incredible little spider. I've never seen a crab spider like this before, but Herbie, who has spent a lot of time on foot in this area, says he's noticed that they do like to spend a lot of time on these Weltheria bushes, and he says especially in the winter time, which I find quite interesting. So a good example of an ambush predator doing what it does best, waiting patiently for its food to come to it. Now, we've got another very interesting scene over here, and it's going to be a little bit of a tracking quiz, and what I'd like to do is show you guys a few stones on the leaf of this Weltheria indica. who would have put those stones here? I've also noticed a branch over here. Who would have put this little branch over there? So that's a little quiz. Who is responsible for putting that branch and those stones onto the leaves of this bush? What I want to do is give you a bit of a wider view of the scene. Now when tracking, it's good to have an idea of the general area, not just the individual track or sign that you've noticed. So this is the general area. You can see a bit of a pathway coming through here, a natural game trail. So yes, please let us know who was responsible for that. Interesting one, isn't it? I'm sure a lot of you are scratching your heads. I was also scratching my head, and to be honest, if it wasn't for Herbie's wizardry, it would have taken me a while to work out what happened there. Herbie came to the rescue and told me exactly what it was that put that stone up on the leaf. This is a road that we call Ingwe Alley. When I first arrived here 3 years ago, there was 2 young leopards called Djuma in quarantine, 2 brothers that used to spend a lot of time in and along a riverbed that flows just to the right of us. And actually there wasn't a road here, and we actually kind of made it because we spent so much time looking for them and finding them here. Oh, Herbie's found something. He just gave a little whistle there, just to let us know that he has found something. Hello Mystics, you've made a guess as to who put the stone on the leaf. You said monkeys. No, thank you though for making a guess, and you guys are all going to laugh when you hear exactly you guys are all going to laugh when you find out exactly what it is. What have you found here, Herb? Ah, thanks. Well done. Now, I've been searching for these tiny little flower mantis for the last few days, but haven't seen any, but Herbie's managed to find one. Ah, here it is. Now, I don't want to bother it too much, so I'm just going to bend this leaf over there. There we go. Now we'll get some good views. They are tiny little mantids, and they're called flower mantids because of their colorations and markings. They kind of blend in and look a little bit like a flower. You get lots of different types of flower mantids, and just like that crab spider we saw earlier, they too cleverly wait on these Waltheria plants which are flowering at the moment, and therefore are going to attract a host of little prey insects that this oh, did you see that massive jump? How cool was that? And they only really use their back 4 legs for movement and walking around and jumping, and their front 2 legs are specialized for hunting. So they've got tiny little spines that help to latch onto their prey when it's time to catch them. Good. Thank you, little flower mantid, and thanks to Herbie. Kathleen, you said a squirrel, and the clue I'm going to give you is you guys need to think a little bit bigger than monkeys and squirrels. Both of those are wrong, and I actually don't want to go too far away. I think I actually might. Ginger, you said James did it. He's a trickster and a joker, but he cannot claim responsibility for that. The animal that probably can claim responsibility for doing it is the same animal that did this. Rocky, you got it. Well done. It's elephants. And just like the elephants walking past this tree after having a mud wallow and leaving their mud behind on the leaves, what happened here, and you guys are all going to laugh and possibly give yourselves a little kick in the bottom for not thinking about it, but it's so often the case with tracks. It's so simple once you've been told, but until such point in time that somebody's told you what caused the track, it becomes difficult. Now we are back at the scene of the stones on the leaf, and you could imagine a big elephant walking along and then boink, stepping, crushing the stones into the leaf, and then continuing off, and that's what gets left behind. So that is the doing of the foot of an elephant crushing this plant down as they were walking through the bush. Cool. Like I say, once it's been explained and pointed out to you, tracking often becomes so simple, and you're often like, how did I not think of that? But there's lots of interesting little things that happen out here. Another common one, I remember when I was first doing my tracking tests as a beginner, is something like, this isn't a very good example, but something like a blade of grass blowing on the road like this will create an area where it looks like it's been swept, then it stops being windy and it goes back up, and you come past and you're like, who swept the floor? And it was just the grass in the wind. So there's another example of how you can kind of be caught out and surprised by some interesting tracks. Very good, we are going to keep perusing down Ingwe Alley. Hopefully there is an Ingwe waiting for us, and Ingwe being a leopard, who knows, that young male leopard that we saw this morning wasn't too far from here. It would be incredible if we find him again. But for now, we're going to send you back to Noel.
So we have pottered away from Chitwa Dam, and we're just slowly driving around. I want to see if Hasana's around like we talked about earlier. I haven't seen him in a few days since we had him after the other morning when it was raining. And later in that day he was seen with Kachava, and then when I went to go try and find them, I couldn't find them. I have a feeling that they both went in towards very close to Chitwa Dam, to Chitwa Lodge, and then they moved into, well, at least Hasana moved into Little Gowrie, and so I'm hoping that he wants to pop up somewhere around here today, or maybe even Kachava herself, because I haven't seen her in quite a while. It would be nice to see her. I'm trying to think of what other updates that I have. Oh, the Nkuhumas went back over to Simumbili, and the Sticks went back into Little Gowrie. And other than that, I haven't heard anything on quarantine lately, and I haven't heard anything on Shadow and her youngster lately. So last time Shadow was seen was also on Little Gowrie. I have a feeling that her and her little one are over that side. I'm hoping she pops up for tomorrow morning because we haven't seen her in a while. It would be nice to see her. And I'm also curious about this young male that was seen this morning, who he might be. Oh, Adele, good question. You're asking where Tumba is. Adele, the last update that I got on Tumba was also that he was around Little Gowrie side, but I have not had sorry, it's going to be a little bit bumpy. I have not had as many updates about him as I would like, and I actually haven't seen Tumba yet. I would love to see Tumba. I've seen everybody else except for Tumba. Well, I haven't seen Anderson Mail, but Anderson Mail I think is down by Londolozi or something like that. So yeah, that would be a good one. And then Mvula, we haven't seen Mvula in a while. I haven't seen Mvula since our whole wild dog crazy chasing scenario. So I love him. So I got a question the other day after Game Drive about how do I know Mvula, since I just started working with Safari Live. So I used to freelance in this area many years ago, and then I also have come to a couple of places here as a guest because they were sister lodges of other lodges that I worked at. So that's how I know Mvula. I know Mvula seen him on and off now for about 7 years. And then for other leopards that you all would remember that are no longer with us, I remember Karula very well. I did some game drives freelancing and got to see Karula really nicely, and I also remember, sorry about that, Mafufignon quite well. I'm not sure, Mafufi's used to be on Chitwa quite a bit in the nets. I'm not sure if he made it up to Gowrie. I would assume that he would. I'm pretty sure that many of you might know him. He was a beautiful, beautiful male. I enjoyed him very much. And then other than that, most of the leopards that I know are farther north from us here. Marissa, you're curious to know, do the animals when they're injured seek humans for help? And you're asking because why would Hasana lie close to the road near camp? So Marissa, Hasana's lying close to the road. Oh, sorry, not Hasana, Tingana. Excuse me, I've done that like 3 times today. I've got Hasana on the brain. Tingana's not lying near the road close to camp because it's close to camp. He's lying there because it's part of his core territory, and that's where he feels comfortable. So it's not the fact that there's humans in that camp, it's just that's his space. So he could care less that we're there. We're actually in his space. He's not coming into ours. And no, I don't think that the animals seek out human attention for help. And I don't think, like, his paw's injured, he has some injuries, but you know, he's a wild animal, he'll take care of himself. He's not coming to us to say, look, I've got an injury. But Mariska, I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to interject it with a story from an old boss of mine, because there are circumstances where it can sometimes be a bit different. Not with cats and things, but this story is with an elephant. There was an elephant, she's still around, and she was part of some of the original research that was done in the greater Kruger area on contraceptives and movements between summer feeding and winter feeding. And so they had a collar on her that had a GPS tracker so they could chart all this stuff, etc. So by the time they wanted to take the collar off, she had just given birth to a little one, so they decided to wait because they didn't want to bother her too much. And then a few years after that, my old boss was on drive, and she came up close to the car and she was tummy rumbling at him, and he's looking at her like, okay, and now? And she kept tummy rumbling. He's like, okay, and now? And then she got down on her arms, sort of on her elbows and wrists like that in front, and lifted her ear, and the collar was cutting into her skin a little bit. So they called the vet, and the vet came and took it off. So 99.9% of the time, animals don't want anything really to do with us. They see us as part of their environment, but you will find every now and then a very special story like that. And that particular elephant and my old boss, he had worked on that property for so long. By that point, they I want to say knew each other, but I'm going to say those words, knew each other, and just remember, the way that we have emotions, the way animals have emotions are very different. So it's not that, you know, they had a relationship, but there was definitely a connection there, if that makes sense. So there's no black and white, but in general, yeah, Tingana is not going to come to us for help, but you have a story like I just told you there that, you know, there are special circumstances, mitigating circumstances, as it were. So it's an interesting thought. It's a good question.